Hi there, it's Mathia Ford with Renal Diet HQ, and today I wanted to do a live and talk to you about some handy tips for eating to remember when you have chronic kidney disease. And I'm going to go over 5 tips that I have for you, but I want to remind you that it's really important to try to manage some of your eating and to do it kind of slowly, not like pull off the Band-Aid kind of quickly. So when you try to follow a kidney-friendly diet, it isn't always just as simple as like eating the healthiest options, because sometimes your seemingly ingredients that are good for you can have high levels of phosphorus, and if you're worried about phosphorus, if your lab levels show that you have high levels of phosphorus, then those can be bad decisions, or maybe something you should choose less often. Or potassium amounts. So if you're worried about your potassium or your potassium levels high, then you certainly should manage the amount of potassium that you eat. Not everyone has to limit their phosphorus or potassium, so don't just automatically reduce that or don't automatically change that. The things that we know that you should change that would be the most helpful when you have chronic kidney disease are eating less sodium and eating lower amounts of protein. Those help with your creatinine and other levels in your body. So these 5 tips should help you remember what to eat when you're kind of making that choice. So number 1, back away from beige. So if you're worried about potassium, you need to choose things that are not as much whole grain. Now, I, for one, want you to eat some whole grains, because I know they're healthy for you. You need the fiber, you need the extra that's got extra vitamins and nutrients in it, but you need to watch out for eating too much whole grain. Now, in the US, I don't know that that's a huge problem, but you can get fiber in other ways as well. You can get it from vegetables, you can get it from your oatmeal, or other like hot cereals, but just watch out for those like whole grain breads and brown rice if you're worried about potassium. If you're not worried about it, you certainly should steer towards those things because they have more fiber and more natural vitamins and minerals that are very helpful to you and healthy for your heart. Number 2, so if you are concerned about phosphorus, you probably want to switch out your dairy. So if you have high levels of phosphorus, if you're in late stage 4, early stage 5, or on dialysis, you're probably going to switch out your milk to something that is more has less phosphorus, like unflavored rice milk. And it's really something that you probably would want to do as you moved towards later stages of kidney disease, but not when you're in stage 3 and stage 4 kidney disease. You can still drink regular milk. You just still need to pay attention to the amount of protein that's in regular milk, because an 8-ounce glass of regular milk has as much protein as an ounce of meat or poultry. So you have to balance that when you're trying to control the amount of protein that you're eating. Number 3, red is best when it comes to fruit. So this one's really kind of easy for you. A handy rule of thumb for choosing fruits is to generally stick with the red options, like red berries, strawberries, apples, watermelon. Yellow fruits like bananas or orange like oranges can be higher in potassium, and so people tend to steer away from those. I always think of it as a great balance between how many you balance. So eating a little bit of some is not going to be a bad thing. Eating too much is going to be what's going to cause the problem. So if you find yourself overly eating, bananas every afternoon, you might want to balance that out with eating some strawberries or some apples that can, or grapes that are also healthy, also have fruit or fiber, and yet are not as high in potassium. 4, so opt for the least salty meats. So most fresh meat isn't too salty. Just really need to watch what you're putting on it. If you're using like a rub or a marinade, make sure you don't have extra salt in that. You can read the label and look at the ingredients list. But think of your meat options in terms of how much salt. So you have your higher salt things are more processed foods like your hot dogs, your deli meats. You might steer clear of bacon or eat less bacon or sausage because it's not only high in sodium, but it can be high in fat. And so you want to manage how much of that you're getting. But think of eating less salty meat, so don't be adding salt to your meat, and use more fresh cuts or frozen. Like you could have frozen chicken breasts when you thought it's fresh, and as long as it hasn't been injected with extra salt, sodium preservatives, then you can feel pretty healthy eating that. And number 5, so portion control counts. Now, when you're thinking about managing your chronic kidney disease, the things you want to look at are protein and sodium. I've already said that. But when you read the label, it's going to quote to you based on what the amount of the serving is. So you want to know how much that is. But if you want some general guidelines, you've probably heard this before, but I'll repeat it. A 3-ounce portion of meat, which most people can eat between 3 and 9 ounces of meat a day, is the size of the palm of your hand and about, that thick, or the size of a deck of cards. Doesn't seem very big, and you should definitely fill your plate with those vegetables and fruits and grains that allow you to feel full but aren't overdoing it with the protein. I want to think about cheese. Some people like to eat little cubes of cheese, like as a snack or whatever. So about 1 cube is usually about 1 ounce, the size of a dice that you can roll. And most juice portions are 4 ounces. And the fat portion is typically like the amount on your thumb, that thumb pad. So if you think about, a portion of butter or a margarine, that's what you would think of it as. So overall, I wanted to just remind you that there's some ways that you can make kind of some healthier choices in the minute. So if you're at a restaurant and you're looking at a salad, if it comes with, apples and some walnuts and chicken breast that's not fried, that's going to be a healthy choice. And then look at some oil and vinegar or vinaigrette type dressings. You want to try to manage how much protein you're eating and how much salt you're eating by choosing less salty meats, less processed foods, watching out for those red items and the bananas and the oranges, eating a little less often. And when you're transitioning, it's easy to have kind of these guidelines. I also want to remind you that as time goes on, you'll find your balance where you want to, how much you can eat. And I don't want you to go overboard. So I want you to kind of slowly start to incorporate more healthy things and get rid of those things that seem to be less healthy for you based on your lab results. So if you're interested in learning more about understanding your kidney test results, understanding what your labs are, you can go to renaldiethq.com and click on the Understanding Your Kidney Test Results menu item, and that's where you can find out more information about the course that I have about understanding your kidney test results, and it tells you what it goes over in there, but it goes over all these different labs that you might be concerned about when you first find out you have kidney disease. And I'll also put a link to that in the below this video. So thanks for listening today, and I'll talk to you soon.